You're listening to Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Join us as we explore how medical professionals can achieve stellar success in all areas of life. It's time to level up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Tudor Francu, and this is Stellar Success Podcast. I have the pleasure of having here with me Dr. Joel Napenas, and he's a good friend, he's a good partner, and I want to share some of his visions and impressions and advice of what it means to be successful. Joel, nice to have you here.
Tudor, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor and a privilege. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, and hope we can bring some value to your audience.
Absolutely, man. I'm sure you will. So let me ask you from the beginning. My podcast is called Stellar Success. What is success for you? What does it mean?
Success, I think we always associate success with our careers, right? Our level of achievement that we obtain with our careers. And I think being raised by immigrant parents, that have come all the way to Canada, where I was born and raised. They came from the Philippines. They're always trying to impart that you do well, and I think the first thing that you think of is doing well in school and achieving success in a career. And I think people like your audience and you and I, we've all looked to become doctors in order to achieve it. But I think once you get into that aspect and you've attained that and you've fulfilled that, you realize that that's only one aspect. Success is really engagement and happiness and meaning and purpose in what you do. And this can dovetail into my career path. But it's really knowing that you're making a difference and that you're contributing. Success is feeling healthy and vital, and when you're doing that, because then the best version of yourself also shows up. And lastly, I think success is really about giving back and leaving a legacy with your loved ones, with your family. So we're talking about like our immediate family, and our relatives, and also individuals that that we try to help out along the way. So I think things
That's
began
great.
by trying to achieve becoming a doctor, but once you've hit that, you realize that there's so much more to things in
Yeah,
order to be considered
absolutely.
successful.
And this is what I want to kind of offer a glimpse into lives of successful doctors like yourself, right? What does it mean to be successful as a person, as a human being? It's not only the professional aspect, like you said, it has many other intricacies and aspects of your life. But let me ask you to give us a little story of yourself. How did you come up to where you are? And how did you achieve the success you have right now?
All right. Well, a little bit about myself. So I'm actually not a physician. I'm a physician wannabe, and I as a child, I had role models and mentors that were physicians, and I'm actually a dentist, but my specialty is oral medicine, and um, basically, I did not get into medical school on my first try. But being risk averse as I am, I applied. I had like 4 or 5 backups and applied to dental school and got in. And then went into dental school, not knowing what it was at all, and immediately disliking it. I thought that was the next best thing to being a physician. You're called a doctor, you're helping patients, you're treating patients. But it wasn't what I expected it. But fortunately, when I graduated dental school, I almost by accident came across the specialty of oral medicine, which is pretty much kind of the fusion, the interface between medicine and dentistry.
Interesting.
And since then, it's really, it's managing medical conditions of the oral facial region, in the oral cavity. And so we deal with a lot of pathology, and we work very closely with neurology and rheumatology and dermatology. It's a lot of dermatologic conditions in the oral cavity, and autoimmune conditions. So so I think I found my calling. So in a
Interesting.
way, even though by title I'm not a physician, I am pretty much living the career that I dreamed about. And so since then, I've been essentially in a career of academics and education, mentoring residents involved in research. I'm a hospital-based oral medicinist, dentist, working alongside physicians. So, I think my career has really, surpassed anything that I could have envisioned when I was starting it. So
Yeah.
even though I didn't fulfill my dream of being a physician, I believe I'm living out that dream right now. I've mentored and trained dozens of residents over the years, and it's always a joy. I still do. We conduct clinical research. We're involved with international meetings and collaborators all over the world. And I think this is, it's far surpassed, at least professionally, anything that I would have dreamed out when I got
That's
started.
awesome.
Mhm.
You mentioned you grew up in Canada.
Yeah, so my parents immigrated to Canada in the early 70s, and they ended up getting married there. And so I was born and raised in Southern Ontario. It's about a small city about an hour from Toronto. And but I think we were always raised with um, family values.
Mhm.
So we had uncles, aunts, cousins, relatives all nearby, and we were, they all came, they all immigrated to the country, and they're all supporting each other. And so, I was used to growing up with a lot of extended relatives around, and cousins, uncles, and aunts that were pretty much essentially like immediate family. And I think those are some of the core values that were the immigrant core values that was brought to Canada. And we had like tight knit communities and all of that. So I think now living in the United States, I have the best of being American, Canadian, and Filipino in
Yeah.
in a lot of identities that I can identify with.
Awesome. Awesome. Joel, I want to slide on the aspect that as physicians and medical professionals in general, in healthcare, we think about ourselves as someone who it's very well trained in what we're doing day by day. We're taking care of patients, and we're doing the things that we should be doing. But success in life is something more than a professional success itself, like you said.
Yeah. So I think.
And
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I want to because I want to kind of slide into that idea of what is the extension of your professional success in your social life, and how do you see yourself as successful in other areas of your life, like in about your health, about your nutrition, about
Mhm.
your social life, about your financial life and
Mhm.
investing. How do you see those coming together?
Well, we spend so much time, money, and effort to get to the point that we are in our career. And I think once you've attained that, uh, you realize that there is so much more. There is so much more to life. And so I look at my young residents right now, and they're there. We just spent a whole day today. We were in the operating room, doing cases and answering inpatient consults. And so that during residency, you're immersing yourself to be the best clinician that you can be. But then you hit a certain point in your career, like I do, like with me, once you start having children, that our vocation, our calling is only one aspect. And I have three small children. I have a wife, and being there for them, creating, being a role model, being present, just being present. It's that's more important. I mean, we still have the patients that we serve, but that's more important than everything that we've achieved thus far. Um, and so, when you're in your training, yes, it's the right thing to be there. You're 80, whatever, 80 hours, although they don't allow it now with resident duty hour limits. Uh, so I try to achieve balance in terms of my life. Uh, and and we've seen a number of physicians and our colleagues that they're simply devoted, married to their profession out of obligation, but other aspects of the relationships, the time spent with their children, their health, kind of their mental health,
Hmm.
kind of goes by the wayside. So I think in the later part of, even though once you've achieved a certain level, you find that, your well-being, your ability to get good night's sleep, to have heavy focus on your nutrition and your exercise. Um, and so I think over the last 6 months, I've really spent a lot of time uh, optimizing my health. That's
Hmm.
actually probably more so than our business, and we can even talk about that, business investing. But this past 6 months, I've really focused on, with the end goal that I want to be the best version of myself, be the most effective parent, the most effective spouse, and the most effective in my job and in our business. And the
Yeah.
only way to do that is you got to make sure that that engine, which is yourself, is in the best shape. So, I've really prioritized, mindfulness, meditation, sleep, diet, and regular exercise as a priority, because I want to be good at what I'm doing. I want to be present, and I want to be able to play with my children's kids, play with my
Yeah.
grandchildren,
Yeah.
and be vital doing so.
That's a great definition of how you're thinking about success for yourself. You know, they're talking about being successful, but all the people that are successful, they failed at some point, and you cannot have success without failure. And I want to ask you if there was any moment you can share in your life, professional or private, that you had something that didn't go your way, or didn't, pan out the way you wanted, and um, moved you forward in
Mhm.
some way.
I think it all starts with, again, the story that I shared with you at the beginning. I really wanted to be a physician, but I was very risk averse, and I've seen a number of um, my colleagues at the time, my classmates, that they try to apply to medical school, one, two, three, four times, and just weren't able to get in. And so, me being risk averse, I had a plan B, C, D, and E, and all except for plan A panned out. And but I remember, after getting all those, those rejection letters from medical schools, and by the way, it was mostly because I did very poorly on one section of the MCAT, and it was just one. Otherwise, I had the grades. I did very well on all the other sections, but just that, having that one bad score on one section of the MCAT actually prevented me from the cutoff for a lot of the universities to get an interview. So I remember, at the time, I was just devastated.
Yeah.
I was just devastated. Uh, and But I kind of moved forward, and then I remember, like I said, dental school, when I was in it, I was like, is this really for me? And so I really wasn't as engaged, and I thought, okay, maybe it'll be better once I make it all the way through. And I just, I kind of just barely made it through. Um, but then, it was really by accident that one of my co-residents saw, an ad that they were look for this program that I ultimately ended up training in, and now that I run.
Hmm.
Um, and he said, you always wanted to be a physician. This looks like this is the best thing for you. You got to apply for this. Um, and then I think just the rest is history. you know, I go in the training program. I'm in the hospital environment. You know, I think the nature of what we're doing is great. I had wonderful mentors. I still have wonderful mentors that I'm working with, you know, 20 years later. Um, and, you know, I think my career has gone, you know, much further than I would have ever imagined
Awesome.
because of that. And, you know, and I'll tell you the other thing. My wife will always remind me, my wife, whom you know well, she'll always remind me. She's like, you know, because I used to say, it's like, oh, you know, maybe I wish I went into medical school. And she said, yeah, but we if you got into medical school, you wouldn't have met me, you know, and because we were introduced through her a mutual friend who was my classmate in dental school. So, uh,
You see, everything happens for a reason in this life, right? And some things are meant to be in a way or another. It's interesting. I want to slide on a different aspect of your success because I know you're very passionate, and you both are passionate about investing in general. And I remember Warren Buffett said that you know, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you're gonna work until you die. Um, how do you interpret this quote of Warren Buffett in your life?
well, I'll start by when I was in dental school. One of my classmates introduced me to the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then I was reading it, and you know, at the time, I was thinking, you know, if I go into a career that I love and it's going to pay me really well, then it doesn't matter. So I read it, but I dismissed it, right? I was thinking like, oh yeah, you know, I can do this, you know, for as long as I live, I'll make a very good living. And you know, I think I went the path that was much different than my dental colleagues. You know, many of my dental colleagues, they wound up being practice owners. Um, and myself, you know, being employed by universities and medical centers, um, I was an employee, and sure, you get paid well,
Yeah,
and it's great. You know, but then you know, come year 5, year 10, year 15, I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, you know, I have to work, otherwise I'm never, you know, I have to keep working. You know, if I don't show up for work, we're not going to get paid. And then I realized it's like I'm no different than, you know, the person serving coffee at Starbucks, the barista. We're just getting paid more to do it. But um, so then that's when I really started focusing on our finances, and you know, looking at our, and for a while, you know, I think I was like, you know, trading stocks and, you know, thinking naively that I can, by trading, that I can beat the market. And
everyone
you know,
everyone does.
right, you know, and then, you know, after doing that for a little while, you know, all of the activity I did, I realized that I would have just done better putting it into index funds, you know,
Yeah,
just leaving it. And so we were just, you know, just looking for ways to be financially savvy, and to um, other ways that you can make you know, income that does not directly correlate with you being there. um, and so that's why we started looking at other asset classes, and we were introduced with real estate, and we've had some physician mentors that actually introduced us to that. And we started with our initial you know, small properties. We bought, you know, some duplexes, quadplexes, and we kind of saw how that was you know, what the power of that. And then, you know, kind of expanded into investing passively and actively in larger projects, you know, in large multifamily, you know, you know, the
interesting.
ones, yeah. So um, on top of that, then I've also become passionate about educating my residents about finances, because a lot of them are going, you know, coming out of school with $500,000 in debt, and you know, and they're just trying to get their first job, and you know, trying to teach them to be prudent with their finances, and you know, not jumping to the stereotypical doctor's quote unquote lifestyle,
Yeah,
and because otherwise, you know, you don't want to be a slave to your profession. And you know, like,
absolutely.
and so, you know, like I love what we do. I love what I do, but I would love to be doing it. I would love it even more if I get to do it because I want to, not because I have to. And
That's a
so,
great point.
so
I
I
love
think,
the way that you start like passing on your residents the wisdom that you acquired over the years, because I remember when I was a resident, um, I mean, it was getting by, man. It was getting by and trying to accomplish, little small gains and goals
Mhm,
with the salary that we were given at that time. But retroactively, when I'm thinking about it, if someone like you, for example, would have come to me and say, "Hey, man, listen to me. Don't buy that new car right now
mhm.
because you cannot afford it. Don't buy that new house right now because you cannot afford it. Um, Start investing because that's going to create you some kind of passive income that you can buy your wants.
Mhm.
Um, get situated first with investing. Um, but yeah, that's great that you're doing this. Now, tell me, is there any kind of you're mentioning real estate. Is there any kind of real estate class that you favor in your investments or you like?
Well, I think that it's a matter of, and we can use Warren Buffett again. You want to stay within your circle of competence.
Yeah,
So in my studies, I think we all started with, bread and butter, residential, and so that's what we initially invested in. And by the way, we haven't been doing this very long. It was 2020 when we really first bought our first investment property. I think prior to that, I knew absolutely nothing about real estate, and we really, I think it's really narrow and deep, and so I think we've really just stuck with bread and butter residential multifamily, and I've since learned and got educated and mentored on large multifamily. Um, we're trying to avoid the whole thing about shiny new object syndrome,
yeah,
and we're presented a lot with other opportunities, like RV parks, and car washes, and medical office buildings, and commercial and retail, and I just, at this point right now, I just don't think it's within my circle of competence, and maybe it will be one day. But I think we've just really, because of the fundamentals that people are always going to need a place to live, and that in the United States there's still the shortage of housing.
yeah.
So I think as a fundamental asset class, it may not be the sexiest, but it is the most reliable, and it is what's within my circle of competence.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's something that you need to be comfortable with and taking that risk because every investment has a risk associated with it. And the more educated you are about that risk, the more you can take it, knowing that you can lose money. Um, but transitioning to the fact that you are a successful person on what you're doing right now. Every single successful person has a series of habits and routines and things that they're doing every day to improve themselves. What are those for you?
I think it's and I think I've really spent the last 3 or 4 years developing this. I think once I was introduced to this whole new world, um, because I think prior to that it was just waking up and going to my job, and then coming home. But now it's being very intentional. I think the beauty of this is I feel like I'm in college again. Even though I'm kind of going into the second phase of my career. I just have all the youthful energy, and so I think it's really, um, being mindful and practicing gratitude in the day. So I always make sure I start my day off with, um, even if it's just a few seconds, just giving thanks and great for all the graces we have in our life. And then I think the physical aspect, I always try to start my day off by some sort of physical activity, even if it's just a 5-minute walk, ideally outside in nature. So fortunately, there's a green belt that's near our clinic. So I always try to go there to the green belt, and I'll do a little walk, try to get some sunshine. It's supposed to be good for resetting your circadian rhythm. Um, and then I think the latest one is, no matter what it is you do, uh, conducting yourself with whoever it is, your clients, your patients, your trainees, with them being first in mind. And if you know that your purpose there is to serve them, and to love them, not love the service you give. We as doctors, feel like what we're doing is right and it's the best way, but really you got to meet it from their standpoint. Then you'll show up as a better whatever it is. As a landlord, you got to love your tenants.
Yeah.
So I think just having that mindset is big. And then I think just incorporating physical activity every day. So I just realized, you go to work even though you don't feel like it. Well, even more important, you got to go work out and exercise even though you don't feel like it. So, and almost invariably, even though like yesterday, for instance, I was just exhausted, but after pushing it for an hour, even just an hour at the gym, I felt so much better. So,
Yeah.
and then lastly is just being able to learn something every day. So there's always some sort of reading, and it's not physical reading. It's like listening to podcasts or books. So I drive, my commute's like 45 minutes to work. So I use that hour and a half or so. I get through my books that way, and, just trying to learn something new that will, improve you 1% every day, and that 1% compounds.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing concept. What do you like to read or listen to?
It varies on the mood, and so I think lately it's been a lot of I think a couple years ago it was like general investing and economics, and of course it was real estate.
Yeah.
A few years ago. Um, I think lately it's been autobiographies of successful business business folks. And I think lately I've been kind of on the autobiographies of business folks. Like, I just went
Mhm.
through Sir Richard Branson's autobiography. A lot of lessons learned there. You just realize there's a lot of, he's gone through a lot of failures.
Yep.
He's had a lot of near, even when you thought at the height of his success that he had a lot of near fatal missteps, both in real life and in business. And that just makes you realize it's like, okay, these are the paths that these giants have made. So what you're going through really isn't so bad, and it's a part of the process. Um, so there's a lot of learnings there, and just general business books now.
Yeah, that's great, Joel. I mean, that's so true. Even if you compare yourself to those big personalities, right, in our lives, like Richard Branson or, Elon Musk, and they're still humans. They're still people. They're still people that are following a certain amount of risk and routines and habits that they bring themselves to this kind of level of success. But everybody fails and everybody gets, the only thing that keeps them going is that they get back up and they don't quit. Um, and I think, this is one thing that I'm kind of trying to figure out of successful people. If, what would you say to someone who, let's say one of your residents, for example, that want to kind of, step, you know, follow in your footsteps in terms of like career and investing. What would you say to them? Any piece of advice that you would tell them or tell yourself being a resident, 20 something years ago?
I think it's the following steps. I think one, um, find something that resonates with you, that you can be very, very good at and you can be paid for. That's number one. Number two, don't spend all of it on your lifestyle. Set aside a good amount of it in order to put on things, so that to accumulate assets. And assets are things that will increase in value at some future point. and will pay you in your sleep. So I think it's, I think if you're starting out, but in order to get there, you have to start by, doing things the old fashioned way. You gotta find something you're passionate about that will pay well, that is in the marketplace, that that you can use to get that initial capital, so then you can build your assets. And then, just work voraciously in order to accumulate those assets. So then, whatever vocation that you're doing becomes optional. And then
Mhm.
number three is, don't lose yourself in the in the process. So stay true to yourself, and do it with community. And whatever the community is, it could be a spouse, it could be your family. Um, it's got to mean something, not just for you, but it's also got to mean something for, the people around you.
That's very nice. I love that. Very pointy pieces of advice, and that anybody can follow, actually. Any kind of projects or future goals that excite you right now?
I think right now we're just looking at, optimizing what we're doing, in terms of our current investments.
Hmm.
Um, we're always looking for opportunities right now in this market. I know been a little bit difficult the last couple of years, but I think we want to, really just hone in with laser focus. Um, and the other thing is that, one of the side projects that I've been looking at right now is just try to figure out ways that we can deliver our my specialty, in an innovative way, in a
Hmm.
non-traditional way. And so that's just kind of been a pet project of mine on the side. And then I think one of the other things that I've been looking at is also, uh, uh, potential investment opportunities in healthcare startups.
Interesting.
So I think one was coming up with one, and then also, as looking at investment opportunities and those things. So I'm just learning a little bit more about that with individuals that I've been associated with. Haven't made any major moves there, but it's just something that's been in the pipeline that we're looking at personally.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, that's a great future right there, Um, how do you deal with taking risks in general and getting out of your comfort zone in this respect?
I think there has to be a degree of, um, you deal I think, us, by nature of the people that go into our profession,
Yeah,
we're the most risk averse folks.
yeah,
So I think a lot of it requires us being, and that's just the nature of what we do. You can't make mistakes. And so I think diversification is one way to mitigate your risk. So just, I think having a set, um, template for what your asset allocation is, and sticking to it. And so not placing all of your bets on one thing, and just staying disciplined towards that. But the point I was trying to get to is that, we tend to err on the side of inaction and just more, analysis, and you can get into analysis paralysis.
hmm,
I think as long as you know that you are diversified, you are not betting the farm on one thing. The only way you're going to learn is to actually take action and do it. Once you have enough
yeah,
information to make the leap. Because in many ways, you're not going to learn unless you make the leap. And so,
absolutely.
it's just as risky as it's just as risky staying in. It's actually more risky staying in cash and letting the value of your money devalue over time. Um, so it's
Yeah,
taking action,
exactly.
but spreading out your bets and diversifying.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a great advice. Like you said, somebody who has some kind of resources, financial resources at this point in our profession, and want to diversify, real estate could be something very good to get into, especially these days where prices are going down. But in general, something that produces cash flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
A passive income stream that gives you some kind of, I would say, security while you sleep. Because obviously we cannot do what we're doing, our profession, for the whole life. We're going to have to rely on some kind of income at some point. Joel, it was very nice having you on the podcast. I'm sure our audience will appreciate your advices and your perspectives. And how is anybody can get in touch with you if they want to?
You can find me in LinkedIn. It's just look me up, Joel J. Napenas, Napenas. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. We also have our real estate investment firm. The website is the number 5D as in dog H partners.com. And you can find us there. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to me either way. And I love to have conversations and connect.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joel. I enjoy our conversation, and I hope we can circle back at some point to see what big news are coming for you.
Thank you, Tudor. It's been a pleasure.
Sure. Take care.
Bye.
That's a wrap on Stellar Success, Leveling Up for Medical Pros with Dr. Tudor Francu. Interested in joining us? Go to stellarsuccesspodcast.com/guest to apply. Stay stellar and level up.